One of the most severe of our down moments is that of fear. Certainly everyone wants to be happy and successful in life, and yet the great stumbling block is fear. You may be afraid to launch out for fear of failing. You may be afraid to meet people for fear they might not like you. You may be afraid of the future and afraid of the past. You may fear sickness, and you may fear accidents. You may fear popular opinion and even fear the weather. There's nothing too trivial to provide a threat to the person who fears. Fear is behind so much odd behavior. Just consider that person with a chip on his shoulder who makes half a dozen people miserable before noon every day. And the reason for the chip is his defensive attitude, which comes from fear. He's afraid deep down within inside himself, though he may not know what he's afraid of or why he is afraid. But because he is afraid inside, he picks on things and people on the outside. He hears insults where none were intended. He fancies slights where none were meant. He suspects other people of cheating him or plotting against him or of talking unkindly or even maliciously against him behind his back. Uncontrolled, this defensive attitude goes on multiplying itself until it populates his world, the world of his own consciousness, with evil people and evil designs and boogeymen behind every bush. The evil and harm lurks everywhere, all because of fear, which of course is totally irrational. Fear makes for confusion in the mind. It wastes energy. It leads to weakness. Ultimately, because of the stress it causes, it leads to all kinds of psychosomatic and even organic illnesses. Fear borrows all kinds of trouble and conjures up in the mind pictures of all kinds of negative possibilities, which by the power of mind action will always tend to manifest themselves as realities. Remember Job once said, "That which I fear hath come upon me." Now most of us, you see, have lived with our fears for so long that we may well be unconsciously reluctant to give them up. We actually defend them. We rationalize that the fear is actually caused by the conditions around us, the dangers we're facing, the behavior of people that we have to work with, and so forth. We may say, "Well, of course I'm afraid. You'd be afraid too if you were facing the things I must face." In other words, we argue that fear is automatically induced by conditions. But the fact is, and it's important that we know this, we fear because over the years we have been conditioned to fear. So we react to things from a fear state of consciousness. In other words, we fear because we are fearful. And as long as we are fearful, we will be afraid in the face of the various changing experiences of life. And you see, some think that the problem would be solved if conditions around them would just change, if people wouldn't be so aggressive, if the economy would stabilize itself, if world conditions would just straighten out. But you see, one who is fearful will always find things to be afraid of, because he begins with fear. It's the level of his consciousness. He starts with fear and then forever looks for things to justify the fear. And then when he finds them, he tends to say, almost victoriously, "I told you, I just knew it." It's like the hypochondriac who's always afraid that he's going to have one kind of illness or another and is almost relieved when finally something is diagnosed and he discovers that he does have some problem. But in the meantime, his fear produces dozens of symptoms that keep his fears thriving. So the fearful person is always afraid that something is going to happen, and he ferrets through all the darkest places he can find, through the news of the day, through the people around him, and in his own experience. And again, as we say, he's almost relieved when the worst happens. And he can say, "I knew it." It's a kind of a mark of success. It's a status symbol that he can find something to fulfill or justify his fears. And the interesting thing is, if you can get this person to admit that he's a fearful person, he will quite often say, "Well, that's right, I've always been that way. It runs in my family, you see." It also runs in the family for babies to begin as infants and to express in infantile ways. But they normally grow up and develop and put away childish things. So one must decide that he's going to take charge of his life. There are loads of things to feel fearful and insecure about if that's the way you want to think. But you have to decide if that's what you want to think. At any time you can say, no, I'm not going to react negatively any longer. I'm going to keep centered in the divine flow within. I'm through with fear and worry and anxiety forever. Marcus Aurelius, the wise Roman emperor in the 2nd century, understood well the folly of fear. And he said, let others pray not to lose their children. Let me pray not to fear to lose them. Isn't that an amazing positive insight from some 1800 years ago? Let others pray not to lose their children. Let me pray not to fear to lose them. Some people pray that they will not lose their job. How much better to pray not to fear to lose your job, so that you can work fearlessly and courageously and positively, instead of praying not to catch the flu or to have this or that problem. Pray that you will not fear, that you will rise out of this fear attitude, so that you can face all things in confidence and courage and positive states of mind. There's a mass concern about epidemics of flu and viruses and so forth. A few years ago, there was an article in the Child's Family Digest by Dr. Merleau here in New York City. He was referring to the Asian flu epidemics that spread across the land. And he pointed to the possibility of what he called mental epidemic, or epidemics of fear. And he said that most health authorities err in looking only for adequate flu vaccine as the only cure. He said that one of the first symptoms of fear and worry and the so panicky feelings is the lowering of the person's natural resistance against disease. And he went on to say that it has been conclusively proven that fear can increase the virulence of virus. He refers to what he calls mental contagion and psychic infection as the most challenging problems in the modern world. An undisciplined mind, a person who simply does not take control of his own life, indulges in all kind of what ifs. What if I lose my job? What if we don't have enough money? What if I miss the train? What if? Thus, the important key is to free yourself from the fear of consequences by giving attention to the control of sequences of thought. Emmett Fox has this in mind when he says, don't think about the problem, think about God. In other words, think the kind of thoughts that will lead inevitably to the kind of experiences that you really want to see manifest in your life. Thus you control the sequences and free yourself from the fear of consequences. A medical doctor, who's a surgeon, after a very serious operation, was asked how he could stand the strain of having another life constantly in his hands. Wasn't he plagued with fear that the person might not recover? He said, I want you to understand, I take my work very seriously, and I want to do everything that I can do for the patient. But it is not my responsibility whether the patient gets well or not. That's up to God or the divine flow of life. It is up to me to be the best surgeon that I can be every instant that I'm working on a patient. A very good attitude, you see, because it freed him of the fear of negative consequences. And the reason that he was free of the fear of negative consequences is because he constantly controlled the sequences of thought by working at the peak of his ability. He knew that he had done the very best that he could do. It's a statement that I have always used. It's been very helpful to me. Do your best and leave the rest. If you do your very best, then you don't have to fear the consequences. Confucius said, a man filled with truth hath power over heaven and earth, God and devils. Nothing in the universe can influence him. Water and fire cannot cause him to fear. There's so many areas of life that are subtly undermined by fear, such as fear of age. One often begins to fear age in his early 20s, which is unfortunate because life is a progress, not a station. It's important that we grow up and outgrow such immature attitudes as that physical beauty is the all-in-all of life. One man who had just passed his 60th birthday and was feeling a little sorry for himself was approached by a woman of 80 with happy congratulations. And she said, my dear friend, you have begun to live after 60 years of preparation, and you are now wise enough to govern yourself and to help others. For this reason, you're destined to discover, as I certainly have, that the best part of life is between 60 and 80. This was a very timely bit of advice for him, and it's helpful advice for all of us. But it challenged this man to get his mind on a different level, to control the sequences of thought and not indulge in completely irrational fears of consequences. It is important to be alert to combat those thoughts of separation that so easily undermine our experience and get ourselves recentered in the consciousness of oneness with God. I like the word wonderful, and especially taking a little liberty with it, O-N-E, wonderful. Wonderful. In this consciousness you can never be fearful if you are wonderful, if you are centered in the consciousness of oneness with God. Get your mind filled with truth. It will make you an incurable optimist. Look for the good, see the good in people and circumstances, and expect the good to come from all things. I love those words of the 91st Psalm. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Dwell much on the idea of all-sufficiency in all things. There's no limit to the ability within you to deal effectively with any and all conditions that you may be borrowing trouble about. All the help of God that is necessary to solve any given problem, to meet any need, is wherever the problem or need may be. The supply of God is always where you are, and it is always what you need. Let me repeat that. All the help of God that is necessary to solve any given problem, to meet any need, is wherever the problem or need may be. The supply of God is always where you are, and always what you need. Know this, keep coming back to it in times of stress, and you will be through with fear and worry forever. There's an old cliche, never put off until tomorrow what you should be doing today. You know, if there were an organization called Procrastination's Anonymous, this might be the credo. Certainly, if we were all to take careful inventory of ourselves, we might realize the need to join such a movement of PA, Procrastinators Anonymous. Admitting to ourselves that we are powerless over the problem, we would make a commitment to enroll in the PA program next week or someday. Well, let's face it, we all procrastinate some of the time, but some persons are really very good at it. Actually, a skillful procrastinator is something to behold. He uses every ruse. He stops at nothing to convince you and himself that tomorrow is really the only time to get started in doing something which you know and he knows should be undertaken today. There are many reasons for procrastination. At the root of it is a sense of inadequacy, the fear to attempt because of the expectation of failure. And the best way to shield yourself from that possibility is to come up with all kinds of apparently logical reasons for not launching out. And there's the principle of inertia. One may have wishes, hopes, desires, lots of good ideas, but inertia is a factor to be dealt with. It is almost as if we think that if a thing is to be done, it will, as we say, work itself out. In physics, there is a basic law that says a body will remain at rest or in uniform motion, in a straight line or in direction, unless acted upon by some external force. If something needs to be done, it will not happen unless you get it started or changed or stopped. And there is the hope syndrome. Certainly one cannot live creatively without hope. There is a sense in which hope is closely akin to procrastination. For instance, one man was involved in a mutually destructive marriage relationship. Eventually he faced up to it and took positive steps to dissolve the marriage. When he was asked why he had endured this experience for 30 years, when he knew early along that it was not right, he said, "Well, I guess I always hoped that it would work itself out." But you see, things do not just work themselves out. By inertia, they continue in a sameness of experience until someone takes some kind of positive steps to change things. There are many true students who are hung up on procrastination in a subtly subconscious sense, dealing with things in the faith that, well, I know everything will be all right. But everything will not be all right until you begin to positively tune in on that divine power of all rightness. And this requires a definite change of consciousness, of habit patterns of thought and behavior. It is interesting, too, to note how sleep or even tiredness become reasons for putting off things. Did you ever notice how tired you get when you are close to actually doing something difficult? A little fatigue is a terrific deterring device. Illness works pretty well, too. How can you possibly do it now when you feel so terrible? And, of course, when all else fails, there's the, "but you see, I really don't have the time to do it" ruse. One can easily justify not doing something because of a busy schedule, which strangely still finds the time to do the things that you really want to do. And then there is still the final pronouncement that what you desire to do or what needs to be done is really impossible, you know. How can anyone argue with that? Mirabeau calls the word impossible that blockhead word. More often than not, it is an appraisal that skillfully covers our inertia, our mental habits of waiting for something to turn up. We need to remember that the desire to do is proof positive of the potential to do, calling for the willingness to take the steps to break out of the inertial pull. So here's an idea to get into your consciousness. When an urge to do or have or overcome something comes to you, it is simply the vanguard of a train of ideas, abilities, substance, and all that is needed to make that ideal a reality, to make the hope a fulfillment. So the important thing is to get started. I like Teddy Roosevelt's axiom, do what you can with what you have right where you are. And that will pin you right down to the moment. Commence. I love those thoughts of Goethe. Are you in earnest? Seize this very minute. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Now the human self cries out, I'll start tomorrow. But in the confusion of mental habits, tomorrow never comes. Once postponed in that way, the matter is disposed of. The problem is solved. You've committed it to a never-never world, and you're now at peace. But you're not in tune with the infinite. You're in tune with the indefinite. It is said to err is human, to forgive is divine. We need to make this same parallel in the matter of procrastination. To waffle over the commencement of a project, any activity, is very human. It is really quite natural to human consciousness. But to change your life, your limiting habit by altering your thoughts is divine, and you always have a choice. To deal with things in the attitude that what can you expect, I'm only human, or to stir up the gift of God within you and to know that you can do all things through the Christ who strengthens you. You can choose. Admit to your procrastination tendencies, and then to begin to look for things that you can do to break out of the inertial force that has been gripping you. There's no other way. You must accept the fact that you must change your whole way of thinking and living. You've heard it said, and rightly, if you want something done, ask the busy person to do it. Why? Because with all his responsibilities, he has learned to take one thing at a time, and to see each thing through to completion. The typical procrastinator talks constantly about all that he has to do. He worries about it and is drained by the burden. But everything accumulates on his desk and in his mind. He starts few things and then he gets few things done. One successful person was asked how he managed to handle so many intricate details in his daily business with a minimum of care and stress. He said it was due to an unvarying rule to clear off his desk by the close of every day in order to begin the following day clear and fresh. He says his favorite Bible quotation is from Ecclesiastes, "For everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven." The man puts a great emphasis on self-starting and finishing. He insists that things never get themselves underway. Always you must make the commitment to commence. And then once the project is underway, there must be an additional commitment to keep on to completion. I remember seeing a sign in the shop window that read, "Wanted Finishers." I don't really know what kind of a job they were offering, but it's so important to be a good finisher. How often do you leave the letter half written, the dishes half done in the sink, the house half cleaned, the project at work or at home half completed? Form a new habit. Paraphrase the words of Jacob, "I will not let this thing go until I have the blessing of fulfillment." It's a whole new way of living, but it will pay tremendous dividends. Another problem is what I call the someday syndrome. We even justify it on the basis of long-range planning and career expectations. Someday I'm going to have that job. Someday I'll take that trip or acquire that beautiful car or house or bauble. What's wrong with someday? It binds, limits, frustrates the one who practices it. It implies the idea that God's idea, man is lacking, that he's dependent upon external things, other people, conditions, his physical self, and the passing of time for his good. Now, one may express great confidence in the belief that someday he's going to be healed. But ask the person if he would not like to be healed right now. He might reply, well, of course, but, and with that little word but, he has witnessed his belief in restriction. What you want for yourself, you must accept it now or possibly never have it. Because if you really believe it, you accept it as having being in the universe which is forever now. There's no future in the eternal now of infinite mind. The only demonstration there is or ever was is in God's kingdom within you, and that is the eternal now. Print that idea on a card and place it on your desk and over your dressing table to be faithfully remembered. The only demonstration there is or ever was is in God's kingdom within you, and that is in the eternal now. Don't make the mistake of dignifying your procrastination tendency through spiritual treatment. Don't pray to get better or pray for wholeness. Don't pray that you may find a job, but affirm that you're now in your right place. Don't pray to get better, pray for wholeness now, healing now. Don't affirm that you may become the kind of person you want to be, but affirm that you are now God's perfect child. There's nothing futuristic, you see, about your unity with God. Jesus said, before Abraham was, I am. Build on this realization. Affirm your unity not as something you will have someday, but as the foundation of your life right now. And remember, the amen at the end of your prayer or spiritual treatment means, it is finished, it is done, so be it. It does not mean maybe, or I certainly hope so, or maybe someday it will work. There are many reasons for procrastination, but the result is always the same. A confused, disorderly, indecisive life. If indolence or the pressure of seemingly overloaded days has led to the practice of putting things off, if, like Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, you meet life's great crises with, well, I won't think of it now, I'll think of it tomorrow, if you are forever postponing the good you desire and to which you are entitled, then start at once to rid yourself of the habit tendency of mind. And remember, if you want to, you can. You can deal with things promptly, clearly, systematically. For what you desire, you already are. You can develop the habit of promptness, calmness, and order in your thinking. You can keep on and keep on keeping on to completion in everything that you undertake to do. Take some time to make two important lists. First, itemize all those things where you can think of in your home or your office where you've laid things aside and haven't finished them. Go through the clutter, either throw things out or make a commitment to begin to work on them now and to work them out to completion. Secondly, make a list of all the things in your life that must be done, then check off the things that you're going to work on this coming week, and don't make the mistake of including all the vague things that you think you really should tackle in the future. Settle on the things that you really believe you can do this week, and give these items a priority number, and before each one write, this one thing I do. And then get this thought into your consciousness. Divine order is established in my life and affairs. I think and act with calmness and orderliness, and I am prompt to do all the things that should be done by me. Let me say that again. Divine order is established in my life and affairs. I think and act with calmness and orderliness, and I am prompt to do all the things that should be done by me. Certainly one of the most widespread of human problems in our time is that of pressure. Most of us are familiar with high tension levels that are built into our life and work, causing stress and all sorts of compounding problems. Remember the old adage, when things get tight, something's got to give? For many of us, this has meant that the chain is no stronger than the weakest link, and that in the midst of conflict we may have a nervous breakdown, or hit the ceiling, or lose our job, or experience some kind of tragic loss. But pressure, you see, is an inner build-up, resulting from how we deal with things. And so the giving means changing our attitudes, becoming more non-resistant. One of the most comforting and helpful promises ever made to man, we find in the words of Jesus, "These things have I spoken unto you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you have tribulation, But be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. The word tribulation comes from the Latin word tribulum, which means literally to press. The tribulum was the threshing floor, where wine was made by pressing grapes with stamping feet. So in other words, what Jesus is saying, in the world you have pressures, but I have found the way to cope. And the way that he found, and clearly taught, is that the only problems one ever has are in his own mind. Remember, he said a man's enemies are they of his own household. No matter what happens out there in the world, or even what sits on your doorstep, all that ever really counts is what happens within your own mind. Get your thoughts positive and your mind at peace, and nothing can disturb you. The key, you see, is to be centered within yourself, centered in the divine flow. Then you can walk easily through experiences out there without conflict or pressure. But if you lose this inner center, and you become immersed with things of the circumference of life out there, you'll be pushed and pulled, and you'll feel lost because you have no roots. When you are centered within yourself, you know that you're in charge, not the clock or the calendar, not worldly priorities, not the urge to conform, not the fear of the future or worry over the implications of the past, not the cost of living or the threat of recession. You're centered within yourself, and you're in charge. And the world may have its pressures, but you can cope. What a marvelous realization this is. You know, I once saw a building going up in Manhattan. I stood kibitzing on the sidewalk. I noticed the bricklayers were laying a brick wall that was to rise 50 stories high. And I found myself thinking, in terms of human consciousness, all those bricks, how can they ever do it? It's too much. But the bricklayer doesn't look up and worry about all those bricks. He simply lays one brick at a time. And this is a key to human experience. We need to give way, to let go of the anxiety over time and effort and how much and when, and give thanks for easy and effortless unfoldment of all that is needed to be done, and to do the job one thing at a time, or like the bricklayer, lay the bricks one brick at a time. You know, we talk with pride of the American way of life, and it is certainly something very unusual. But it may well be that recent events will make us take a new inventory of our priorities, because the American way is strewn with cars and houses, fur coats, stereos, TVs, and deep freezes, all of which are beautiful. But the energy shortage is pointing up an unusual vulnerability. And the reason the gas shortage is so painful is that it strikes right at the heart of our house of cards that is teetering precariously. And of course, along with the recession and the financial problems that this has caused. I have a lot of faith that the current problems will resolve themselves and our American dream will not burst like a bubble. But there's a great lesson in it all, which I pray that we will learn individually and collectively as a nation. When we're centered at the circumference of life, we're out of tune with our own inner flow. And like the prodigal son, we come to know want. One man had been under the constant pressure to make it and to have all the things that spelled affluence, a lovely home, several expensive cars, and all the luxuries that money could buy. He was beset with tremendous pressures. As the world would say, he really had it made, but it's obvious that he really didn't feel worthy, so he was always under pressure to prove himself. The turning point of his life came through a crisis. He received an emergency call saying that his home was burning down. And by the time he arrived, there was nothing left but charred ruins. The next day, raking through the ashes, he said, "Everything is lost, but then, so what? All that is important remained. I have my wife, my children, my good mind. I have the future. I still have everything." Suddenly he was free from the load, and he found a whole new perspective of his inner center. So he plunged into his work as usual and soon regained the things, because he was a very innovative, creative person. But now he worked from a sense of success rather than desperately trying to achieve success. His affluence came easily, but now he had an inner sense of peace that was unshakable, because now he knew where it's at. Quite often we get so involved in things we're doing and goals we're working for that we act for all the world as if life begins and ends in this job, or getting that promotion, or meeting this deadline, which keeps us under constant pressure, fighting time, resisting change, dealing with people who may be under a different set of priorities. There's a realization that I love. It goes like this: I work without strain and walk without hurry, because I'm in tune with the rhythm of the universe. That which needs to be done will be accomplished at the right and perfect time and in the right and perfect way. Let me say that again. I work without strain and walk without hurry, for I'm in tune with the rhythm of the universe. That which needs to be done will be accomplished at the right and perfect time in the right and perfect way. And then, believing that you're plugged into a divine rhythm, you can do the things at hand without pressure. This is one of the subtle problems of having clearly set goals and well-defined master plans. Unless one is careful, these things can produce great pressures. Certainly have a plan and keep it in the back of your mind, but don't worry about it. Don't let it become an obsession. This moment is all you have to work with. The past is behind you, and the future is yet to come. You see, a goal should not be a preoccupation for tomorrow, but a direction for today. If you want to protect yourself from the sense of pressure that comes from anxiety or the fear of failure, be sure to keep yourself now-minded. This same kind of pressure is often felt by true students because of what we could call perfectionism. We talk a lot about being perfect, which leads us to expect the most and to be unhappy with ourselves if we ever fall short. Of course, we should reach for the highest, but we should also remember how far we've come and not be constantly prodding ourselves with how far we are from the summit. Be patient with yourself. Occasionally give yourself a loving pat on the back. You have all eternity to achieve the goal. Keep working, but keep patient with yourself and with others. Part of spiritual growth is the experience of joy, which we certainly sacrifice if we grimly press on under the pressures to be perfect. Do your best and leave the rest. And that latter is the important key. Leave the rest. Let it go. Let it go. Do what you can and then let it go. And relax. And free yourself from all the kind of pressures that build up. This suggests the need to take time, and I would add to make time, for relaxation and change of pace. And we have to make time, otherwise we'll talk ourselves out of it. One woman at an exhibition of Chinese art was very much impressed by one picture. It depicted a tree with a very few branches and very few leaves and a bird sitting on one of the branches with a large empty space between the branch and the next branch above. And she said to the Chinese artist, "I would like to buy that picture, but will you paint in a few more branches and leaves?" Typical American attitude. The artist replied, "Oh no, I couldn't do that, because that wouldn't leave any room for the bird to fly." So the point is, do you have room in your life to live? Do you have room for a change of pace, for relaxation? I was talking with a young niece about her schedule in high school, and she talked of classes on split-minute schedules, of just so many minutes for lunch, always on the run. I was chagrined when I realized that this is the symbol of our times, where unfortunately the young are being preconditioned to a pressure-laden life. But it's not the problem of time, but it's the way we deal with time. One can have a marvelous relaxation and change in just 5 minutes, and one can remain filled with pressure during hours of inactivity. Edwin Markham says, "When you're the anvil bare, when you're the hammer strike." If you keep consciously centered within yourself, you can keep up a busy schedule, you can carry heavy loads, and produce great amounts of work, but without any pressure at all, because there's always a center of repose within the arena of work. You can depend on the inner guidance to make decisions. You can trust the process to evolve the creative ideas and unfold them. You can truly cast your burden on the Lord, on the law, because truly he that is within you is always greater than he that is in the world. I love that thought of Walt Whitman. "Oh, while I live, to be the ruler of life, not a slave, to meet life as a powerful conqueror, and nothing exterior to me shall ever take command of me." Let me mention this again. "Oh, while I live, to be the ruler of life, not a slave, to meet life as a powerful conqueror, and nothing exterior to me shall ever take command of me." One man was told by his doctor that he had just 6 months to live, and he reported to work the next morning, and his co-workers had heard about it, and they were all very shocked, and so very subtly they came around and sympathized with him, and one of them blurted out, "What are you going to do?" He said, "What am I going to do? I'm going to do what I've always done. I'm going to live one day at a time." Well, that was 10 years ago. The man is still living one day at a time. As they say jokingly, he'd probably outlive the doctors. And these 10 years have been creative years, not a dreary existence of anticipating doom, because he cast the burden on the Lord, on the law, on the divine flow, kept himself consciously in tune, let go of all sense of pressure and hurry and worry and anxiety. And this is the key for your life and mine. Let go of pressure, let go of anxiety, let go of stress. Oh, while I live, to be the ruler of life, not a slave, to meet life as a powerful conqueror, and nothing exterior